let's get cracking here. All right, welcome everybody. This is your Tuesday aftermarket webinars here, Wall Street Jesus and Sang Lucci. We have a special promotion here to throw out for you guys for the master course, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. We first want to, of course, just talk about the markets here. Indexes here just kind of stalled out for today. However, most of the juice was all in the tech names. And I think Jesus got pretty tired just yelling tech all freaking day, simply because most of the flow was centered around the same names that we saw before, you know, the Microns of the world, the Netflix of the world. If you take a look at this Micron, I mean, you know, this is a monster all-time high breakout. And we've seen this actually several times over the course of the last, 5 years. Every time you get a name that, you know, has taken a while to get through all-time highs, and finally has done it, you get this sort of Jesus calls it panic buying, and you know, we saw the same thing in the Netflix. Take a look at the Netflix breaking the 300. By the way, Netflix broke $300 on a day where we were getting smoked. We were getting smoked in the market. Of course, we came back, you know, towards the afternoon or whatever. But the SPY, you remember that, Jesus? SPY was down to like 267 or 268. And this was the day that Netflix put in that move to $300. And sometimes you'll get the little signs, you'll get these little signals, you know, that all of a sudden, you know, things are going to turn pretty aggressively. And sure enough, you know, the next day, this thing gapped up to 305. The next day, we just shot up. What was it? Yesterday, we shot up 40 handles from the lows or whatever the hell it was. You know, it had this massive up day. And again, you're seeing names like this Netflix, like the Amazon, you know, like the price line here, the BKNG, and all these kind of other names really exhibit some serious strength. This is where everybody wants to park their money. Jesus, care to comment here?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's just tech. You know, the good is when you have a setup like this, you get excited, you fire, there's some money to be made. But then when they run away, you know, like I was telling you before the webinar, it's almost like today was tough for me to rebuy these things, even as a day trader, you know, like Micron. And every morning, you know, we come on 8:30, 9 o'clock, and we're like, all right, if you got any sort of pullback in Micron today, you see some flow, you got to play the, you know, that was 2 weeks ago, Lucci. You know what I mean? Like, So, the problem is, here's the issue. The problem is that's still where the aggressive money is playing. Okay, that's still where here's the thing we were looking at today, and we couldn't believe it. Would you believe it if I told you that still the sentiment play out there is Techland? Because they're underowned. Nobody's in these things, and you know what happens when eventually they have to get in them. You get this pace, you know. So, but I have time chasing in general. So today was, even though the names were hot, you know, Micron CRM is another one. If you want to type that up, Salesforce CRM, yeah, they've been animals. Even Netflix caught 3-4 sweepers again today.
And they were buying. You know what they're buying on this Netflix, which just freaks me out completely. They were buying yesterday. They were buying the March 340s. Like, they were buying this shit yesterday, and the stock was like at 310 or whatever. They were buying the 340s yesterday, and they were buying them, I think, for like $2 or something crazy like that. And you can see, you probably see the orders here. Let's see if we can take a look at these things. Yeah, and again, yesterday, at around $2 or whatever, this is where we saw a bunch of buy orders come off. And, you know, look at this thing today. This is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. You know, and look at how far out of the freaking money this is. This is the 332. So if we go to the 340 here, and this was all the activity from yesterday. And then you see it today. You know, you're seeing a fat double here on a 340 strike. And by the way, for most of you guys who are new to options, let's say, you might be asking yourself, well, this option is so far out of the fucking money. Like, why would they buy an option like this? instead of something that is closer to the money. Well, similar to what we were just saying, like when these things hit all-time highs, they tend to just stretch and stretch and stretch. I don't know if you guys remember, but Amazon, when it got over that 1200 area right here, I mean, look at this. This is a 250. This is like a 300-point move, and then it shook everybody out. It shook everybody out. And you think this name can't go to 1600? You think this name can't go to 1700 or 1800 by the end of the fucking year, provided the market doesn't doesn't absolutely crash back? Like, that's where these things are going. I mean, look at this booking, this price line.
Even this court action. This name never catches wise guy active. This court action yesterday.
This court action, Jesus flagged out like 300 contracts bought like yesterday before the shit started, and they were buying 2,100 calls for fucking March. You guys want to see this option? Look at this option. They paid $8 for this shit. They paid $8 for this shit, and now look where it is. It's at 20 freaking dollars. They paid for this shit yesterday. This was yesterday, so let's look at a 2-day here. This one might be easier to look at. This was yesterday. Look at this.
Yeah,
look at this. Look at this shit. That's 8 and change, 890 or whatever the hell they paid for this shit. Look at this shit. Like, that shit is sick, man. That shit is sick. And I don't think we're done. Look at the SPY too. Everybody was like, "Oh, we'll come right back tomorrow. We'll come right back tomorrow." Let's talk real quick about the SPY ranges too. That has everybody, really up in arms right now. That is the topic, for this sort of ES handle range, this 20 handle range, 30 handle range, 40 handle range. Jesus, can you comment on this? Like, when we're in these certain types of periods, what advice here can we give some of these guys?
Yeah, well, that's what, instead of, and you're going to hear a lot, especially some of the traders that are new to the game and haven't maybe experienced some volatility and some wide ranges like this. But I mean, in this environment, if you're an active trader, this is your time. I remember you saying this a couple of weeks ago.
Hell yeah.
People who never wanted to sell, right, and felt like they were making the right move over and over and over again, this is their time where they get frustrated, right? They buy whenever they want and think they could sell whenever they want, and ultimately they'll get bailed out by the market. That's not the case now. So, but like you mentioned, when you have these type of ranges, you get market moves that last year would take literally 2-3 months that can happen in the course of days, okay? So that's your goal. If you can be nimble enough, if you're an active trader and can take advantage of that, that's something you want to keep your focus on. You don't want to go back to the habits of last year where you just buy whenever at any level. If the market's up 300, buy up there. So if you could pull up, you got the SPY chart, right? So you see the we had a huge run off the lows, okay? We remember missile activity, Micron, Tech, all that came in, marked the bottom perfectly. We have a massive rally, went further than any one of us probably thought, in a straight line, basically. Okay. And then we had a pullback. Now, that's a good thing. If you're an active trader, as that market was extending to the upside, that's when you want to pull in the reins a bit. You want to take it easy. You don't want to chase. That's when all the retail traders think we're going right back to new highs. They think they could buy here, sell it higher in a couple of weeks. So
I was convinced too, and they always run it longer than you think. I was convinced right here, Jesus, we were going to 280. I was convinced.
Me too. I was
fucking convinced. I was like, we ain't going back down. There's enough people just stuck into this shit, and that's how good they are at pulling that sentiment, man. And then when they pulled the rug, I mean, you guys, you saw those sell programs. They came in at like 3:30 in the afternoon, and we dumped like 50 fucking handles. We would dump like 50 handles out of nowhere. It was just thin air, just boom.
And then honestly, what did the emotions feel like then? Now all of a sudden, from going to new highs, we felt like we were going to new lows.
We felt like we were going to new lows. Everybody on Twitter is out there talking about, we could test 260, test 250 again before going up. And again, these are the theories. These are the theories that everybody has to have to justify what they're doing. But the second that theory is disproved through the flow, which is again something that we use aggressively just to figure out sentiment in general, and that really does help us just kind of save ourselves more so than anything. Like the
Yeah.
flow really helps me just save myself from doing some off-brand shit that I can really get in trouble with. Because even during these 2 days, like I should have lost a lot of money. I was down a lot of. I think I was down like 20 grand on one of these 2 days or something like that. I should have lost a lot. Luckily, they were short rights that ended up coming back for me. But but again, like everybody was just sitting there buying everything, and then as soon as I saw the strength in Netflix and the Micron and all that kind of stuff, I was like, hold on, man, something ain't right here. Maybe
Yeah. So basically then we had the wash, after that nice extended rally, we had a wash. The sentiment quickly shifted just from bullish, just like that. They go to bearish. The tariff news really, heating up. And all of a sudden we saw them come in and aggressively buy the weakness again. It took a couple of days, but what was it? Friday. Yeah, it was Friday. They came into the weakness in the morning. And then Monday, yesterday, we had weakness. They gobbled that up. And then you get that extension today. So, now at this point, that's what I'm getting at, Luch. Like, this is a tough spot for me now because you look at all these names that have been catching the flow. It's only 3 days of upside, so it don't feel like a lot. But look at the moves on these things,
Crazy. And just a quick poll for some of you guys. How many of you guys are easily able to buy stuff that's already ran up? Like how many of you guys would easily be able to put on a big position in Micron up here? How many of you guys would easily be able to put on a position in Netflix? I'm just curious because I can't. Me and Jesus physically can't do this. You know what I mean? Because we are, call it the pessimist, call it whatever the hell you want to call it. But we've seen it enough times where it ain't that easy. Once the easy money is done, even though you get a melt up and even though these things continue to pay and everything, I mean, Netflix went, 10 more points than I thought it ever freaking would anyway. But playing that just becomes a lot harder. It becomes a lot harder. The game becomes a lot harder. And you can see it in the SPY chart and a lot of the charts today. I mean, even that Micron, we had a monster gap up, but then we just kind of did nothing. So, your day trading potential here may have been a couple of scalps, but you ain't going to get a runaway stock, just like before, unless, of course, there's that much demand for it. And, once you see that easy money being made, a Micron call buyer getting paid double, triple, quadruple, how much more is he going to get fucking paid? I can't do it. I don't know what it is. I can't physically do it.
I can't. You know why? Because the first thing, I don't know about you, but the first thing I look at, okay, and the problem is, even as a day trader, I find it hard to do. And sometimes I sit back and I say to myself, why is this so tough for me? Like, just stop yourself out if it comes down and, not worry about it. I feel like I'm almost putting on a huge position that got to marry it for 6 months as a day trader. That's how tough it is for me to do. But I measure risk reward wise, and I say to myself, okay, how much upside am I going to see from this point in Micron before that inevitable wash, right? Because it's coming at some point. The likelihood of a wash, the probability of that wash increases as the stock continues to push higher without a pullback. So I say to myself, and I try to tell that to a lot of swing traders in the room, what are you looking for on the upside? If you get that extra point, are you going to lock that in? Because if not, if you're looking for more than that, you may get another buck of upside, but you might get caught in a wash and risk reward not worth it. So,
which we see happen all too often.
All the time,
how many of you guys, go ahead and give us an amen or raise your hand or whatever, like how many of you guys get caught up buying a little bit too far and then you get stuck in a wash, and then what ends up happening in the wash, you get married to the idea that the shit is great and it's just going to keep going higher or whatever, and then you end up holding. And then in the options world, guess what? You can't do that shit. You can't do that shit unless it's that 1 out of 20 times where this thing does end up running, or whatever you trade ends up running. But more likely than not, that theta, that time decay and that perception is going to come out of that option.
And what about all the juice, Luch? What about all the juice? Like a name like Netflix, you just mentioned, out of the money stuff getting juiced up. You get a wash there. What happens to those things? They, White didn't
Exactly.
blink an eye. Yeah.
And this is where I come in and shine, guys. So as much as I can't buy something that's already so far up and I'm missing out cash there, you know where I shine? I shine at finding where the slowdown is going to come.
You
And then
love
I
that.
can come
Yep.
here in these options that are so far out. I mean, look at these 340s. Look at these 345s and look at these 350s. There's still fat premium on this shit for Friday. For Friday, the second Netflix has a 5-point dump, these shits are going to zero. They're going straight to zero with or without you, you know, and that's a place
Now,
where
let me ask you a
I feel
question. Now,
comfortable.
do you normally, would you look to do that? Because I know you like to you like to try to catch that quick put side too when they start to
Yep,
get tired.
absolutely.
Do you normally, you would write calls before you pull the
Yes.
trigger on the, oh, so that's how you get
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. That's how I get the feel for it. So for right now, for example, like I'm getting a feel slowly on these 337.5 calls. So I started writing a little bit of this anyway, and then I have a
right,
little bit of the 345s too. So then when I'm already in this, and again, Jesus, you know more than anybody. It's like once you're actually in it, you know, then you're connected to this thing. You know,
yeah,
I got to be in there, even if it's small size or whatever. And
yeah,
then once I start to see the tape show me like, yo, they're not coming back to highs anymore, or let's say the market rallies and nobody is buying this Netflix all of a sudden, then that means they rotated out of it. Then I'll be like, all right, let's go ahead and pull up some 320 puts or pull up some 315 puts, and then just go for a quick sell. You know, a quick 5-point sell or a 5-point pullback, you'll get
right,
a huge volatility spike on some of these. But again, you have to be able to time that right. And timing is of course everything, you know, when you're trading options. So absolutely, Jesus, I get in small, you know, with the short calls, and then I'm on both sides too. So I'm shorting puts through this whole move up as well. So I have
right.
short 295s, 300s, I have short 305s, I even got some 310s today. So those have already premed out pretty much. Like I even sold the 290. I sold 295s yesterday, guys, for $1.50. These things were trading $1.50 yesterday. The stock was 20 points up. You know what I mean? So you can still
Yep.
get some fat ass premium on
Oh,
this stuff.
forget it. Yeah, the
You know?
puts, Luch, that's why you're obviously doing it. But you know, every time we get that wash and then that turnaround in the market, all of a sudden is in bull mode. Realistically, bang for your buck, risk reward wise, and all that. If you're capable of selling the puts, I mean, that's the way to go because these things are all juiced up. People
Yep.
buying protection out to wazoo.
Right.
And you get that one day like we got Monday, and those things are going to zero, and nice and easy. But
Exactly.
it's interesting how you'll feel it when you're writing on the call side. You
Yep.
get a feel for it before you get pull the trigger on the put action. I
You know,
find
and that's tape reading, 101, guys. And again, I'm going to throw in
yeah,
the master course here in a little bit. We got a big discount here for you guys, but being able to read bid and ask and being able to read supply and demand just as it feeds out on a call, on a far out of the money call or a far out of the money put, you can really get a great read on sentiment. And then just feeling like, are there any other buyers out there? You don't want to be in a call where there's no other fucking buyers and it's only you versus the market maker. You want to be in a call where everybody wants that shit, because if everybody wants it, you're going to be able to buy a dollar option and sell it for $2. Now, if all of a sudden everybody's ghost, then all you're going to see is the market maker playing around, and he's going to lean on this bid all day, and this thing's going to go to freaking nothing because the perception just came out in the stock. Remember, this thing ran 25 points. Could it run another 5? Yes. Could it run another 10? Yes, absolutely. But the sentiment and that perception will kind of show you the way on where things are going to slow down. And when they slow down, remember, the volatility is huge on these options anyway, very far out of the money, and that's where you can really get some freaking sexy premium. Another thing I want to throw out there is that Jesus finds a lot of put sellers for us. And those are huge, man. So I'll look
yeah,
at those most of the time. So Jesus will flag, some huge put selling or some call selling or whatever in names that we like to trade. I think today you found some Micron ones, or maybe you found
yeah,
some Netflix
early
ones or
on,
whatever.
yep,
And I will always pay more attention to the put sellers than I do to, to the people who are actually long calls or whatever. Because the people who are selling the volatility and people who are selling those in size, those guys got fucking balls, man, and they got big
yep,
accounts too, man.
yep. It's amazing. Yeah, you need a pair of coconuts to do that. Sometimes I can't believe some of the orders I see in there. But
Yeah.
and you got the luxury. It's almost like, all right, there's strength in, like, for example, in Micron.
Yep.
There's strength in Micron. These dips are getting bought, but you don't know as far as how much more further upside, or you don't think you get as big as a bang for your buck on the upside. They come in, they sell puts, right?
Yep.
Weekly puts, and they'll just watch those vanish, and they don't need much. They don't need any move realistically, right?
They don't need any.
Yes, that's why we start to see that a lot. On the spec side for weekly strikes and stuff like that. We sort of Micron and a little in Netflix early on today.
Indeed, indeed. All right, let me break out here and talk a little bit about the course, and then what I'm going to do is pass the screen over here to Jesus, so we can talk about some of the rotation that could be happening, down the line, and then some of the other interesting names that are happening out here, guys. We got a 33% discount, okay, on the master course, which is starting on Monday, March 12th. I'm not going to be doing another course until probably the summertime. We're going to limit it to a couple of you guys, maybe 5 of you guys, I believe, is what Charlie wanted to do. Charlie's not here right now, so don't quote me on that one. But again, the master course covers everything, and it will even give you a course on how to trade the flow, which Jesus and I do together. These are going to be your main topics here. Trading psychology is going to be a big one. Tape reading, of course, is the majority of it. You're going to get live trading sessions as well, so you'll see me in the morning, just trade along with you guys, watching the level 2s, trading these things with you guys, shorting options, going long calls, and then you get access to, of course, to the chat room. So super dope value there. For 2,000 all in, go ahead and use the link sanglucci.com /MC. I'll go ahead and drop the link here for you. And then Jesus here, why don't we hit him off with some some interesting activity that we're seeing recently here.
Yeah. All right. So basically, like we were discussing, we have had our eyes on the NASDAQ, the Qs, the Micron, the Salesforce, all those names. And some of you who came, stopped by on Saturday, the Saturday webinar, you remember the discussion we had. Primarily, this chart tells it all. Let me see if I could dig it up quickly, because for some of you who didn't see it, we were talking about this in the room. All right, this is something, again, flow trumps everything for me, but you guys know I'm a big sentiment guy, okay? You hear Lucci talk about psychology, emotion constantly. There's a reason for it, all right? Markets move based on sentiment. It's that simple, all right? So when we see something like this, okay, and especially when it's tougher for you to swallow, like when I saw this NASDAQ sentiment chart, all right, on Friday, I started digging to make sure this wasn't a typo, an error. I'm like, maybe he ran that red pen, a little too further down there, because it didn't make sense to me. Like, you had Netflix strong, you had, names like Micron firming up, all the tech names look solid, right? All the NASDAQ names look solid, the leaders, and yet sentiment was still bearish. Okay. And the more and more I looked, the more information I found to justify exactly this, that tech was under-owned. Okay. So I'm just taking you back to where we started. This is late last week. Okay. As this market was off a sell-off, and the noise out there, basically CNBC, Bloomberg, all you heard was the tariffs, the this, the that. The world was coming to an end. Okay. And that was this. Okay. So Friday, we saw the first signs of buying coming into that weakness, if you guys remember. Primarily tech, again, the Microns, all the names, the Intels, okay? And then Monday was really the confirmation. We saw some weakness early on. If you guys remember, the markets gapped down that morning, and then they came back and even more aggressive, okay? They came back and bought these tech NASDAQ names, and that set up this, okay? But again, the bad thing out of this is some of these moves for me now they've gone too far. They've gone too far. Okay. So the way to play it, if you're an intraday trader, a lot of guys in the room today, we're playing fades. Okay. So I'll give you an example. Intel this morning. Intel, the action there has been off the charts. Okay. Yeah. So we had Intel early morning. I actually traded it. Aggressive sweeper activity, had a nice move. Then you get this wash, right? and the stock based around here for a little bit. We see some flow come into it again. That's where people get that quick day trade. Okay, they look for that. But aside from that, like Lucci mentioned, it's tough to see that run away from here without some sort of breather. Okay,
Right.
so that's where we are, as a whole. I mean, for a lot of names here. Okay, there's some exceptions. I'll give you an idea. Win, for example, Lucci, this thing, there's a May buyer that just keeps coming back and piling onto May calls here, just continuously. Every time this stock is down, he came in today into little green, unchanged, added to May exposure. So, this name is a little bit different. You got some exceptions, but where the juice is at out there, the tech names, they all semis, they all look like this. All right. So even though we're seeing flow, it gets tougher here. The easy money, like Lucci mentioned, is over, especially for me. I need these things to set up again. See, what I like to do is I like to swing a hammer, Lucci, as you know, when it sets up like this, okay, and I got sentiment there, as soon as I see them start to get aggressive, that's where I want to be my largest, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? That's when I want to be the most aggressive as far as long exposure. And then as it runs away from you, there's several ways you raise stops and blah, blah, blah. But that's when I want to start thinning out and then let it set up all over again. So we're at that state now. As we push higher, you're going to have more and more people get bullish around you. But at the same time, I think we got to allow these things to set up. But the flow there has been incredible, incredible. But that's where we're at. I'll give you an idea. If you look at the board today, primarily bullish, right? We had some fades in the market where the market looked like it was going to roll over. We really weren't too concerned about any rollover in tech because the flow was, some selective put buying here and there, but all bullish. So there's nothing bearish coming out of the flow. But you want to be a little careful after a 3-day jump like this. And
right.
The ranges have been ridiculous that, you look at, let me just give you a quick example. So people, the Netflix, okay? This LFCX court action. You talk about a move from 181, it hit 212 today. You know what I mean? In 3 days.
In 3 days, yeah.
In 3 days, I mean, the microns, this is micron. You had to pull teeth to get a buck out of the thing. You got to run from 45 to 55 in 3 days.
It's sick, man.
So,
sick.
Just for me,
that dip buy right there, 46 though, like that was like the first official dip buy or whatever. Like the people came in, and you can tell like everybody's waiting for that shit. Everybody.
So that's why, like, we had this run here. Here's a good example, okay? If you guys remember, here's where the missiles came in. They marked the bottom, as you guys remember, okay? And then we had this crazy move, right? Out of this whole base, just basically in a straight line. So what we were looking for is something like this, okay? It doesn't look like much, but some weakness there, and then they come in firing again, and that could be a spot for an entry. You know what I mean? But up here, this is what you're concerned about getting caught in, because you really don't know how long that can last. And when you trade options, Lucci will tell you that shit can.
Yeah, what I do with names like this, and again, what I'm going to do with names like because Micron guys, you can get size. Like I can put 200 grand in a Micron and nobody would bat a fucking eye. Like in the options, I can put 200 G's in there. I can put $1 million in there and nobody would give a fuck. So if I go ahead and find, let's say this thing tops out at 55, it might stall out for a while, but there will be a shakeout, and that shakeout is going to be 1.5 or 2 points or something. And if you catch that shit right with that size, that's where I come in hard. Now, some people make fun. Some people throw shade. Some people are like, well, where were you on the long side? Damn it, I can't be everywhere, man. You know what I mean? Sometimes I catch them, and sometimes I can't, all right? If I don't get them, it doesn't mean shit, all right? Netflix is going to do another 10-point move or 30-point move next month or 2 months from now that you might miss as well. Like, that's what the game is, The game is that game. So if you miss one here or there, like, don't get yourself caught up about it. You're always going to be able to find some shit.
You hit the nail on the head. The trick is, and exactly what he just said and what I just mentioned prior to that, everyone's got their favorite setup, right?
Exactly.
They got the most confidence in. And, that's where you're going to, as a trader for yourself, that's where you get, that's where you size up. You get the most aggressive. And even though stocks trade higher after that, doesn't mean, you can't have that, you can't have that personality where you feel like you're being left out and you start breaking your own rules and shit like that. So you just allow them to set up again. If you're a degenerate, like most of us are, you play nice and easy, right? You entertain yourself a little bit. But this is where, like for me, I'm giving an example. It may be different. I know Lucci, it's different. Many traders different. But you wait for your setup again, and that's where you get most aggressive. But there are a lot of names. Here's the good thing. There are a lot of names in this tech arena that are breaking or on the verge of breaking. You have this WDC.
Let's throw some of those out there for everybody.
Here's
there's
one.
A couple of them here. WDC, yep.
Go to July Missile, same thing. Look, a whole tangled up in this spider web for a while, couldn't get out of its own way. You remember, Luch, you remember when Baba get out of this, something like this?
Oh my God, it moved like 50 points. Pull that one up.
Oh my God, yeah.
So she's in the same boat. Baba here is in the same boat. Look at this nonsense right here on the Baba.
Tugged in a web. So, once, and Baba, we've been waiting for a missile there. We haven't got it, some spec action, but once you see some real action come in there, that's where, you can build a little confidence for the break. But there are a lot of names, Intel doing it already. It's names like Cisco. You remember these names? Look at this Cisco, like just craziness. AMAT looking good, AMAT right there. So
maybe Apple too. Pull up the Apple too. So this one's a huge one I'm watching at 180.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that comeback, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a market correction. These things are right at highs, all of them.
Right. So Apple here, and again, like you guys know, I mean, Apple is part of the whole shebang here. If this thing really gets going over 180, you're talking about a 10-point move right there to like 190. And again, it's all going to be contingent back on the SPY, which SPY already showed you, some pretty aggressive colors. Now, granted, we're all over the place right now, so we could easily just retrace this tomorrow, of course. But the fact that SPY recovered this quickly, and we went right back to 272. And today, even there was a couple sell programs that couldn't break us down. I'm thinking more so we start chopping. We still have a big range, but we just start kind of tightening up the ranges a little bit. Maybe trading starts to get a lot more choppy, which you and I would absolutely hate. But at least we can still continue to write options and things like that. But there's going to be a lot of different setups here that are going to happen. We want this range to tighten up. We want it to tighten up. That way everything starts getting coiled, and you know what happens, man. You know what happens. That either the market takes off to all-time highs, or we dump, and either way, there's huge potential on the table.
I know already what side you're rooting for. I mean,
me, man. Come on, man. You know me.
You don't have to pretend.
You're right. You're right.
No, you're 100% right that eventually there will be a resolution to this, and that's what we're waiting for. But for the time being, from what I look at, flow and sentiment, the weakness when everyone's getting all bared up and you have selling pressure and you start to see them get aggressive on the call side, that's what I like to call the sweet spot. And that continues to be the game plan here. There are trades around that, but when you get that selling, people are all bared up and you get the smart money starting to take the other side of that, that's this. That's what marks these tradable lows. And again, like Lucci said, the ranges are so big that just a little move like this that looks little on the charts, you can make some good money in. So that would be, listen, if you were to wait for a setup, that's what you're waiting for here. Like Lucci said, maybe this chops around a little higher, then comes down, and you wait to see if they buy that weakness again. That's the setup to wait for out of this, as a whole, market-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to cap everything off, actually, let's take some questions here. Let's take some questions here. What are you guys trading? What do you guys want us to take a look at? What are you guys having issues with, if anything at all? Anything that we can help you out with? If you take a look back at the cues, just like Jesus is showing here, to me, again, I think we flatten out here, and then we find our way back to those all-time highs, and continue to push forward. And if we do find our way back to those all-time highs, you already know what to trade. We already know what to trade, and actually, ML here, or Santos here, is talking about a good name here, the Google. The Google is another name in the tech world that hasn't done shit. This thing hasn't done shit. And we're still waiting on this thing. So it kind of got into the gap before, And, you know, we're still really waiting on these things. So these are great trade ideas that you just got to hold on the back burner. Just hold on the back burner and just wait and wait and wait until they start setting up properly. You start to see some kind of the flow, you know, back up some of these names too.
Yep.
And that's when you drop the hammer and really place a big trade. I mean, that dude, that Priceline guy came in yesterday, and I looked at him real. You remember when those, dude? You remember when those? You remember when that Amazon sweeper kept coming back every single fucking day, and he had the thing, and he had the thing pegged every single day. He had the buys pegged every single day. And I'm looking at those, and when they come in, names like these, and they come in with like a 300 lot, a 400 lot, it's maybe like a $200,000 bet on a fucking weekly. On a damn weekly, they come into this shit. You gotta pay attention. You gotta pay attention, and that's what the flow helps us with so much. Like every once in a while, like once a week, once every 2 weeks for me, something just hits, and I'm like, oh, this is this guy right here. This guy right here. This is a wise guy right here that I gotta fucking follow.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You develop, you know, and you develop a feel for the flow. Like, you know what gets you excited as far as the type of orders that come in. And for everybody, you know, could be different, right? If you're a longer term position trader, could be different. But I know I have a certain kind of flow that, you know, when I see it, I don't even blink. And Lucci, the same thing. What excites him? So you develop that feel as you see the flow day in, day out. You know, guys, there's a lot of activity out there. Okay, we're trying to focus on size and the aggressive aspect, but as a whole, there's a ton of call buying, put buying, selling out there, and you can't try to make sense out of all of it. It's impossible. But sometimes, you know, you wait around, you wait for setups, you wait for action to come in a certain spot, and you could just see it. You could just feel it. You know, feel what the guy's going after. And that's a confidence trade there.
We got ML here asking about Tesla. Tesla is a different one. Tesla is a situation where we've seen sweepers come in and try to go for the break over 360. Tesla has the widest consolidation range that I've ever fucking seen, and I hate it. I hate it, but it's a great intraday trading vehicle because again, there's a lot of momentum and all that kind of stuff. I think right now it's relatively weak, but could I tell you that she's going to $300 and lower? No. Could I tell you she's going to break over 360? Fuck no, man. So I got nothing on this thing. I really got nothing on this thing.
I mean, the last noteworthy order we saw was the day of the Micron missiles. We saw a September missile, again, right at the lows. Since then, you know, we see some smaller weekly activity. You see a lot of that in Tesla. But once in a blue moon, you see that noteworthy call activity. And that's, you know, like Lucci's pointing out, that's that special action. You could trade around the other stuff on an intraday basis and all. But the special action is rare in Tesla, similar to like an Amazon or a Google, where they come in and really get aggressive. But that was the last one. While you take questions there, I'm just going to dig it up. I'm curious what strike he played because he laid some wood there.
We got a lot of questions coming in for UPS, and again, like I can already tell, like you guys might actually be stuck in a name like a UPS that you thought was going to continue to go, or you know maybe you're trying to catch it for a bounce trade. That UPS and that FedEx though, I see what you guys are doing today. Was obviously a pretty big day for UPS. You know, just going through like the high end of the recent consolidation range. So you should see some further upside for this UPS. Poor UPS though, man. Poor fucking UPS. Do you really think Amazon is going to run over these two? I mean, they're already acting like it is. I do. I really do think so. You know, that they could totally just kind of crush them, but you can't get rid of a UPS and a fucking FedEx, can you?
No, and you know what it was? UPS has seen some flow of recent. There was some chatter. I think Warren Buffett taking a position in it, and that's what lit the fuse recently, and I think that's why a lot of traders are asking about it. And it had some. Here's the Tesla missile, by the way.
There you
go. All right. So again, 270 lot, right? You look at that first glance, Lucci, like pike, right? And then he pays $37. September 320s. Look at that candle right there.
Oh my God.
That was the lows on the stock. So basically the 320s, $37. So right here into that day, and he bought the 320. So who even knows if this guy's still in the trade? You know what I mean?
He might have hedged out. He might have hedged himself out.
Look at that move. Look at that move. So it's tough. But other than that, we've seen some smaller activity. Nothing like that. UPS they were asking about. We saw some flow today. Again,
UPS actually does look good. I actually do like that UPS. So now that you brought it up, thank you to whoever brought it up. I'm gonna throw it on the radar tomorrow morning. Maybe
had some news and there's a lot of action in it. So you got a lot of people like to trade the name. So here's basically the UPS action: smaller sweeps. More of that momentum type activity that we see from time to time. They were buying April 115s, March 23rd 112 calls earlier in the day. This was around 2:30. You can see here. So again, I refer to these guys as Momo sweepers, momentum sweepers, and they usually come into names like this when there's chatter around it. Again, on an intraday basis, Lucci, these are fun to trade, and you got some movement there. But trying to swing it off these, you got to make sure you have something else, you like in the name.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk. We got a couple other names coming in here. Some of you guys talking CVX and XOM. CVX and XOM basically look like UPS and the FedEx. There are beaten down names here that might get picked back up. So they look pretty much the same. So you're looking at a consolidation area where they may or may not break out. So it's more of a timing thing. So Michael here for you on the CVX. Anytime where you're unsure of when something is going to happen versus, let's say, a Netflix that breaks all-time highs and you're pretty confident that shit's going to follow through right now. With a CVX, you don't fucking know. You don't know, so you buy some time. You buy some time. You buy some time on your option.
Yeah, here, and again, this is probably why they were asking. Today there were two huge block buyers, non-sweepers in CVX. And yesterday there was actually aggressive activity. Here's the block. This is the block from today, this morning. Yeah. So look at this big guy twice here. Again, this is a block. So, for me, it's different.
It's not a sweep, right?
It's not a sweep. It's not that aggressive approach. It could be replacing stock, even though it didn't come in as tied. There's a variety of things. There's a lot of reasons why I favor sweepers or, over blocks. But that being said, some big buyers today came in on the block side. But yesterday, it was worth a look. If I hate this thing. I can't find it here. You had, here they are. So you had aggressive sweeper activity yesterday in the weeklies. Okay. Yesterday was March 5th, right? Yeah. So here they came in and they were playing the 111 weeklies. All right. That's when the stock was right around 112 at the time. And they got a pop this morning, So again, these are weeklies, and you can see today the stock stalled out later in the day, had the gap up. So listen, energy's tough, guys. If you take anybody, okay, from the Nigerians to anybody out there who follows flow, okay, the one place smart money got lit up, over the past year is in energy. A lot of smart money got torched, and I mean for good reason. You see what's going on there. It's a tough space because you're relying on the underlying commodity there. So in other words, CVX can look great. If crude gets its ass kicked, what's going to happen to CVX? You know what I mean? So it's almost like you're making a play on the commodity itself. So if you're bullish oil, if you're bullish crude, you like the CVX action, you could take a shot down here. I would rather buy it into weakness than chase any gap up, but that's a personal preference.
Yeah. And again, like materials and oil and shit like that, we trade, the guys in the room trade this really well when there's always a lot of rotation flow. So if you're in the room, all of a sudden you'll see people like if people are lighting up steel or like an X or a Nucor or some shit like that, and you'll get giant moves out of these things in the middle of nowhere. We got a couple of great questions to end this webinar off with. I think we're going to do that. So let me take Peter here is saying, Lucci, when selling premium, are you always writing with a cover, selling naked, or it depends? It depends, Peter, and on how confident I am. With a name like a Netflix, I'm doing spreads, so I'll do like 5-point or 7.5-point spreads, sometimes sometimes 10-point spreads too. And then I'll just kind of feel them out. Remember, like, I'm also trading those things too. So it's not like I'm opening that shit and then just letting it fucking go and do whatever. Like, that shit will kill you too. If you're selling something naked, and let's say you sell it for $1 and you're naked with no cover, you know, you got no motherfucking clothes on, you got nothing, and you're outside, like you're in Manhattan, Times Square, New York City, and you got no cover. You're in a lot of trouble. You are in a lot of trouble. Like, that shit can go to $6, $20 on you. Like, if I told you some shit about what, some places that I used to get caught in, just being absolutely naked with no fucking clothes on, that shit ain't pretty sometimes. It's not pretty, all right? So calm down, and again, like anytime you're selling naked, make sure you're using stops and all this kind of stuff.
See, this pisses me off. This pisses me off right here. ADSK, you had earnings, trading 133 right now.
Oh, just now? That just happened?
Yeah,
oh shit!
And you had a ton of action in this thing, but again, you had to hold through earnings, to catch it. They started here recently 110 of most recent in February, and then you got here in the 118, 119 range. Look at this.
And now it's trading 132?
Yeah, $2 million sweep just the other day in it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so.
I hate that shit too, but at the end of the day, I mean, we've seen this happen so many times.
Yeah.
You and I are not going to roll into earnings like that.
No. It just bothers me. You have to. Basically, what bothers me, you have to hold through earnings to catch the move.
And then even then, look at when it happens. Like, go back to that. You see the shakeout. You see the shakeout as soon as it happens. Like, you're having a heart attack right there. Like, your heart is like at your feet at that point.
You want to see one? You'll get a kick out of this Chinese name, right? Look at this. Pop after market. Look at this thing. Oh my God! Can you imagine? You go to eat dinner yesterday. You're like, nice. I'm gonna walk into a Score tomorrow morning. You come back to the screen. You're like, what is happening?
No love at all. All right, we got one last question. This is a great question. I'm gonna throw it here to you, Jesus. Caleb here is saying, how important do you think it is for stock traders to also watch the options? Do you think it provides a benefit? So I'm gonna let you run with that one, man.
I think it's more, or I shouldn't say more, but just as important. And again, people don't understand this about me. I was an equities guy. I'm an equities guy. I've traded equity my whole life. I was a broker managing position in equities. I hardly even dabbled in the option world besides a little spec here and there. Okay. And that's when light bulbs went off, when I started to realize that, paying attention to how the smart money is aggressively speculating in the option market, it's got nothing to do with options. You know what I mean? Whether, like, in other words, you could be a stock trader and be in a position. Don't you want to know if the smart money is aggressively speculating on your side or against you in that position? And we see all too often, and anybody who's followed flow in the room can vouch that it's almost, some of these guys, it's borderline illegal. Okay, it's borderline illegal. So at times, even if you're not taking action off the flow in the option world and you're just trading equity, I can't even fathom walking in every day and not having an idea of what's going on in the option world and having anything to do with this market. I can't even fathom that idea.
It's edge. I mean, you're talking about edge.
Yeah,
right? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like you're a big proponent of reading tape, and that's what it is. I mean, you're seeing, this is not the riffraff out there. It's not the retail money we're looking at, aggressively rolling the dice into earnings and such. We're talking about, the smartest players out there in this game. They can't hide what they do in the option market. And here's the beauty of it. It's all in real time, right? When you hear David Tepper took a stake in Micron, you're getting that information months after he did that. When you hear an insider bought stock in a company, you're getting that days after he physically do that. We're seeing David Tepper sweepers in Micron in real time as it's happening, as it's hitting the tape. So, that's what I think a lot of people, Lucci, they think it's unusual options activity. You have to tail that order. That's the perception out there.
Honestly, or you have to know how to trade options. Like, guys, Jesus does not fucking trade options.
No.
He does not trade a single option. He doesn't trade a single option.
You know, honestly, I spec on the swing side. I speculate in some swing plays where I put in what I'm willing to lose. But I'd be the first to admit it. I can't do what Lucci does in the option game. I don't. You know, I never even dug deep enough to understand that route. So
maybe one day we'll get him. Maybe one day we'll get him to cross over. Maybe one day. I don't think we can. I don't think we could.
I don't have the brain capacity. Is what I'm worried about more than anything.
But you can't even figure out how to open a fucking go-to webinar. You got no shot, man. Let's just. All right, guys. So I'm going to take back the screen here and just give you guys another recap here on the master course. Again, we're giving a big 33% discount here. So that'll get you down to $2,000. You get a month free of the chat room. You get all this content here, access to me directly, and we can help find the right strategy for you. That's kind of what I'm all about. And we talk about it all the time too. It's like, you know, the flow is going to affect you differently. You're going to use different parts of the flow to make your trading. Some of you guys are going to be swing traders. Some of you guys are going to be scalp traders. You know, some of you guys are going to be stock traders too, and some of you guys will want to write options too. And you're going to use all of these things, especially tape reading, you know, to understand how to pull off that strategy as well as using the flow too.
And let me give a quick bullet on that, Luch, because I had a lot of questions about tape reading and you know, how you were looking at it. A lot of you guys were asking me, and some were members too, obviously, on that Friday when we saw that action come into the lows this Friday here. I don't know if you remember it, Lucci. You probably went out, got drunk like 15 times since then. But
okay, I'm not that bad. Okay, can we not put me in that box? Actually, I kind of did though. So
I know you did. So make a long story short, we started to see sweepers pop up for the first time that afternoon. Okay, so into this sell-off here. Okay, and Lucci was there looking at the tape at the same time and kept throwing out there that there were no sellers there. You understand? There were no liquidity, that if this thing heats up, it can really get loose here, and we can see the market push all the way to green. And I got a lot of questions about that. And I just wanted to mention that that's what Lucci basically is trying to teach you in the course. Okay, what he looks at as far as buyers and sellers on an intraday basis and gives you that impression. And, you know, that's what a lot of people found fascinating. We saw that sweeper activity came in, and then you immediately were saying, you know, there were no sellers there, that this thing, you know, everyone should look for a long position. What did you see that was different from everything else? And that's what basically he teaches in that course. I wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are certain times where, again, like I'm just looking for those times where everybody in the market is lining up together. And there's so many different parties. You have short sellers, you have market makers, you have options guys that need to hedge their position in the stock. You have, you know, you have these large funds, you have program buying, you got algo traders out there, and everybody's doing whatever the fuck they're doing to scrape out whatever edge they're doing. Now, there's going to be times where all of those people line up together to give you situations where you're going to get some fucking monster moves. And that's where I need to be, because that's where the edge is. That's where the most money is being made. And by the way, we didn't even bring in the psychology. So all those times are also uniquely and ironically at the times where emotions are at the fucking highest. And retail trader emotions and sentiment and bias is at the highest in one direction, where everybody is still positioned on one side of the trade, but they don't know they're about to get run the fuck over. And when that happens, there's a huge transfer of wealth. And remember, we're just talking about a zero-sum market. Somebody wins and somebody fucking loses. And there is a whole slew of people that get just pushed on the wrong side of the trade, and that's when everything just kind of changes. And you can just see it. You can just see it kind of all filter out together. And the purpose of this course is kind of just bringing all that together there for you. So thanks, Jesus, for pointing that one out there. And then you get this intro to options course. You also get the Wise Guys Revealed. And again, you know, you're 1 month free of the Steam Room here. So hopefully we see you guys in there, sanglucci.com/MC, or you can use the link that I dropped in there for you guys. And again, if you guys just want the room, or you guys just want the private Twitter feed, you don't want all that jazz, you don't want all the noise, you know, not to say it's all freaking noise, but you do have to manage that noise. You know, being able to come into a chat room is a different experience. Some people don't like that, you know, and they just want the chat, they just want the Twitter feed too. So if you guys want any of that, access to that, go to wallstreetjesus.com and he
And
will.
the Twitter feed, by the way, is included with the room. I get that question a lot too, Lou. So
Yes.
I just, you get the Twitter feed. It's not an additional cost. It's included with the premium package of the room. Just for some of those questions out there.
Indeed. Guys, we have another webinar coming on Thursday. And the Thursday webinar is going to be about what are the three, what are the three most widely sort of adopted things that get you into a losing trade? What are the three largest causes of your sort of losing trades? And this is going to be a pretty big webinar for a lot of you guys. A lot of you guys are trying to turn into profitability here or just try to minimize some of your losses. Something that Jesus does so fucking well that I don't even do as well as he does. He's like a fucking machine with this stuff. I don't do it well at all. Maybe because I get so freaking huge in some of these options, I can't get my ass out.
That's because you like the dark side. I keep trying to tell you, you're a big fan of the dark side. You leave the dark side, and the world becomes a little more clear. But you got some evil in you still. You're young. You'll get loose.
Indeed. All right. So join us there for the Thursday webinar. You'll see the links to out on the Twitter. Thanks for joining us, everybody. The recording will be up on YouTube as well. Jesus, take care, man, and we'll see you guys
later,
tomorrow.
brother. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.